All right, so what we're looking at right here is a 24-track Mackie mixer. The first thing you do whenever you start working on a board is you zero the board. Zeroing the board means every fader is set to unity. Unity is nothing added and nothing taken away. So you're looking for U. So every slider here is on that. In the case of all your subs, that's these little buttons here, you'd have everything up. So up, 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 and you just feel it all the way down the board. Make sure everything is at U. Okay. You do the same with the subs, and you do the same with the main. Then the last thing you do before you turn anything on and start anything is you take the main and you put it to minus everything, minus infinity. As far as these settings, right now we're going to kind of leave them alone because they're not really going to be functional on the basic setup. You're then going to go through your aux sends, and then you add it back where you want it. So these are all off basically. What you're doing is you're going to make deliberate decisions later on as to where you're going to route your signal. So at this point, having everything off doesn't mean you have to go looking for some phantom sound, like where's that coming from? Alright, so that's off and off, off, off. Okay, same thing over here. Off and off and off and off. So now, the next part is you're going up here on your gains, and they also have, if you look in here, a unity setting, which is right about here. So you want to get everything set, add nothing, subtract nothing. Okay, and that's your basic setup. If you have a perfect setup, perfect microphone, perfect acoustic, everything is exactly right, you will have perfect sound at that setting. Then you start compensating for everything. Okay, we're going to mix the stereo this way. So everything is set mono, 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 mono. So everything is split evenly. The board is now 0 and ready to turn on. These components are plugged in on the back, and there's a series of plugs on here. And when you turn it on, some things don't really have a power on. But going down, left control room speaker left, power distribution panel, HD24. This is a 24-channel digital recorder. This is a Tascam. This is a CD player and a tape deck, plain and simple. This is a 3-deck CD player. Down here you have a DAT recorder. That's a digital to tape recorder. And at the very bottom you have an aDat, and this is a 8-channel digital recorder. On the right stack you have your control room speaker, the right one. You have a utility drawer, power distribution panel. You have an effects unit. That's sound effects like reverb and what have you. Another sound effect unit. That's effects 1, effects 2. This is a 30-channel EQ. This is a compressor. This keeps your output signal from overloading the speakers. So this is a compressor limiter. Your main signal leaving the board would come through here on the way to the amplifier down here before it goes to the speaker, and it just makes sure things don't blow up. Below is an 8-channel compressor limiter, and that's used for individual channels. Typically for a singer who might get loud and soft and not have a lot of control, but when you have a very, very wide dynamic range, you would then take a look at using one of these for a single channel. Stereo, 8-channel, but you use them one at a time. Below that is your headphone distribution amplifier. Musicians in the studio will be wearing headsets to listen to the sound so they don't create a lot of feedback on other people's channels. And then this is your individual controls per channel, and you can plug in the front or the back a head jack for stereo headphones. This is the amplifier for the control room speakers, and that's the power transformer conditioner for the main unit. Right, we talked about zeroing the board. Before anything turning your power on, the most important thing to do is go over here. Make sure that the main volume is at 0. You reach up here, this is your power distribution, power on, and you'll see the number of lights come on down here. Next thing you do, we'll go to the left side. We'll do the same over here. Power on, you'll see most of the units that have automatic on, they're going to start lighting up. So we're powered on, we're seeing lights. We got a light here, got lights here if you want to double check. Now, if you're working in the dark, this creates little light. These little poles pull out, give you a little extra light if you ever have to see what's going on in there. Most of the time you don't, because they're pretty well done. But trying to chase down a little number here. And then the other one is you always have one of these on your key ring, because as you get older you'll say this helps. Alright, so we have everything turned on. I can see right away we have something coming up on these channels right here. I'm getting some feedback on 17, either there we got. Alright, so we got those zeroed out. Everything is off again. Alright, so we're ready to go, starting our session. At this point, everything's on, everything seems to be working. Studio is set up very small. We have a drum kit, which is an electronic drum kit, which will eventually be turned on, and it has its own little mixer over here, and it has a main out, which is going down here, and I'll show you in a second. But main out, you have the same thing over here. You have your signals going out. In the case of the piano, we have a microphone on the piano, and we have a microphone for a singer to stand here and sing. At the same time in the studio, you have studio speakers. This is for playing back in the studio to musicians that they can take their headsets off. Now, I told you inside there that we have a headphone distribution system up there. Each of these headphones is plugged in. Come on over here and take a peek. We have a snake over here, and the snake is a 16 by 4. You have channels 1 through 16, and then down here is our 1/4 inch. Typically, you would send in there, these are your 1/8 inch, your XLR connectors, and 1/4 inch. These things can go either way. So depending on the kind of connections you may have, you may plug a guitar in there directly, you could plug a microphone in directly in here, and that'll go directly to the board. And I'm going to show you the back of the board. This room is wired a little bit differently in that we have headsets that are plugged into little connectors here. The headsets come into the room on little extension cords, and all you have to do is take a headset, find out what number they are. In this case it's 11, which would convert on the other side to 1. That red label matches up to the other side, tells you which headset. So if this musician says, I need to hear back louder or softer, you would just be able to adjust it a little bit for them. Never wide swings, little tiny increments until they say, that's enough for louder or softer. Always start soft and don't blow anybody's ears out. Then you add a little bit more. Every studio can change. You can have 3 singers, you might have 1 singer, you might have 1 singer doing multiple tracks. You could have 3 singers on 2 microphones. So whatever you do in the room is insignificant. It'll change every time a different band comes in. But we're starting off, we have a drum kit, we have a keyboard, we have a piano, we have a vocal mic, guitar sitting here, which is not plugged in at this point. So we're going to go to the other side and we're going to show how that comes into the other room. Alright, so we've looked at the studio. The studio can change, the configuration is change all the time. In this case we have a vocal mic, we have drums, piano and keys. Piano being the upright piano, the keys being the keyboard. We've wired it on the back, and if you come back here, aside from all the other spaghetti right now, what we have is inputs. In the back of the mixer you have an XLR input, and you have a 1/4 inch input, and you have a choice over here, up or down which one it is. Mic or line. Microphone being this, line being that. XLR is the line. We're dealing with an 8-channel studio at this point. So in the other room we had vocal sort of set up. This is a local vocal, and I know that sounds weird, but this microphone is actually sitting in this room, track 3. But we had a couple microphones in there for singer, and then what we did was we arbitrarily just picked where we wanted to put them. So we put the drums on 6, and it's plugged in here, and that matches up in the other room at that drop box. And 7 is the piano, which is that microphone to the upright. And then 8 is the keyboard, and it's plugged into the snake in the room on plug 8, and number 8 comes in over here. Now,
so they all match, effectively.
Well, you know, whatever you plug in that room, if for some reason you don't like 8, you can move it to 9. Currently, we also have the rest of that snake plugged in. So when you get up here, I have 9 on 9, 10 on 10, 11, all the way up through 16. So just so that my brain works like everybody else's, whatever you plug in number 1, use track number 1, at least as a starting point. So 1 becomes 1 all the way up to 16. So if I say go in there and plug the microphone into 12, they plug into 12 and I move the microphone over depending on where it's at. But I would know it's on track 12. Now that's how we're starting, and you can see this microphone in this room is live, and as I speak you're getting an indicator right there.
I see it.
So the more sound I make on this microphone, it just comes up and you get a light indicator that it's doing something. Alright, so that's the basic setup on the input side of the mixer. Now we're going to talk about how to capture that signal for recording. There's multiple ways to catch a signal. In the case of the first 8 channels here, what we've done is we have another 8-channel snake, and we have it labeled tracks 1 through 8 send to the HD24. So these 1 through 8 match up onto the console over here to our HD24 on tracks 1 through 8. And on the back, if you come around the back here, we're going to take a peek in there. Alright. This is your in and out for your first 8 tracks. So we match them up, and they're all color coded and they're all numbered. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. So you're 8 in, 8 out. 9 in, 9 out, or 8 more. It's 9 through 16. And then we get up here, it's 17 to 24 in. We don't have them coming out right now. Alright. Anything that comes in, we're going to deal with 1 track at a time. But you could turn on multiple tracks. You could do them all at one time, 1 track at a time. You can move a track over, or like for a singer, you have track 1, track 2, track 3, and record them in a digital recorder here. New song, yes. Sample rate, 48, yes. Come on, press new song. All right, new song. Tracks, 16, 24, 6, 2, 6, 8, 16, 24. I'm going to go to 16 for right now. New song. And then we can go over and change the name by hitting name. We're going to go here, and it's old-fashioned, so you go over here and you got to go blank, blank. And for today we're going to call it song A. So it's song 4. We set up for 16 tracks. Your input is analog, and you can change the input right here. Internal clock, sample rate, we got set. We changed it to 16 channels. Once you have your levels, it sounds good. And the way we have this board configured is the signal comes in here, it comes in the back, it goes down here. But along the way, we intercept that signal right here, and we send it directly over to the recorder. When you're ready to record, you press the channel you want to record. Now come in close here. There's 8 little buttons here. This is your record activate. Once it turns on, you'll see the little red dot. And like we said, we have in the room, channel 3 is live, and if I take the microphone here, you can see a level. So as I talk, you see it's ready to record, and you're getting a good signal. If it goes too high, you see it gets into the yellow, and if it gets terribly bad, it goes into the red. The ideal situation to record is you want to be having it all green, bumping just a little occasionally into the yellow. That's a good record level. Never into the red. The red means you're getting distortion. It's a digital recorder, and at that point it sounds like...
Okay, so when you're saying that we actually intercept it and send it to the recorder, so this is raw then. Everything that's going into the
Yes.
OSS here is raw.
You never record with effects because you can't. You can always add effects, but you can't get rid of them. So you're sitting there thinking it sounds one way, and then your partner comes in, the second set of ears, and listens to it and says, wow, that's all too echoey. You can't get rid of it if that's the way you record it. So we're doing a direct out, pre, EQs and everything else. So our signal coming in here for recording is the raw signal, and that's what you want to record whenever you record. We're going to continue tracing this signal. We came in on the inputs. It came partway down the board. You know, we adjusted our gain. We sent it right out on a direct out to our recorder. Then we take our recorder, and what we do is we return it on the tracks 9, 10, 11, 12. So in this case, we're going to listen to it over here. All we're going to do in the first 8 channels is adjust our volume to make sure that this record is a proper record level. The next 9, or the next 8, 9 through 16, we're going to have the return from the recorder come back to the board, and then we're going to send this back to the musicians, and we can sweeten it and change the volume. We can do whatever you want to make them the happiest they can for recording. They may not want to listen to the singer. They may want to listen to the singer. They may not want to hear the piano. They may not want to really hear a bunch of drums. But that's where we come in here, we can adjust all that. We can make it sound one way. From here, we can then send it to our subs. Our subs can then go to tape decks. We can send them over here to a tape deck, make a tape. We can burn a CD. You can do whatever you want with it at that point. Guy comes in and says, hey, can you record that to my iPhone? You go, absolutely. Put an adapter on it, plug into anything you want in the back there, any kind of an output hole. Shove it in, hit record, don't blow up his thing, but you do have a little bit of control. So that's what we do on this side, and we would then go from 9, 10, 11, 12, send that to the main mix. Over here, this is all off, so it goes in, comes out, returns over here. So if I were to turn that one channel back on, which is 1, 2, 3, and I start making noises as I talk in a microphone, you see it's coming in on 3. It goes to the recorder on channel 3, and then it returns on the board on channel 11, which is really 1, 2, 3. So we would have the duplicate here in order to have a proper 8-channel recording sound. At this point, you can make it do whatever you want. Make it as sweet as you want. EQ it. Guy wants to sound like a frog. Make him sound like a shrill woman or whatever. You can adjust the EQs here. Anything you want. It doesn't affect the recording, which is critical. Raw sound on recording. And then over here for the musicians, to enhance the session, you enhance the sound for their delight and wonderment. And if you need a scratch track for the day, for the session, you can always send the signal back out on any of your tape decks or what have you, which is over here. Put a tape in there, throw a tape in, say here's the tape deck, that's what we sound like for 3 hours today, And in fact, sometimes what I've done is put a tape deck in there, a 90-minute tape in there, just turn it on and let it run, and when they're done they go, hey, we got all the jokes recorded and history's been made, and they go home with a cassette. You have the digital recording here, they get a cassette for the session, life is good, they can also go home and kind of listen to what it sounds like. You can enhance it by mixing it down over here to your stereo mix, add some effects, you can make it do whatever you want to do at that point. So recording side, you're basically adjusting here, your gains, and just make sure they don't do anything here with that. So signal in, return, and then down here is just, you know, returns on tape deck, karaoke CD, and I think they're set up over here. So here's your DAT recorder, send. So if you're going to record to the DAT recorder, we record it here. Real simple. Here's where you send those signals to. Studio, control room, and then you punch these down as you want them. 2-track, and that'll send the signal to the tape deck. Usually leave these down and it's always there available. Put a tape in, you can record it.
Go for
it. We know about this side of the board. Right now we basically have returns, and then we're going to have to start directing our signal for enhancement. But we're going to start up here. We talked about effects. We know on our first 8 channels we're recording a raw sound, but on the return side we decide we want to make a little bit of reverb on that. We have effects units over here, and this lines up 1, 2, 3, 4. These are called auxiliary sends. These signals, channel by channel, are captured by turning this up. So I'm on channel 11. If I wanted to get my sound in there, I would turn 11, send 1 over here, and then I would say send 2. So whatever I have on this channel, a little bit of that is going to come right down here and go to effects send 1 and effects send 2. Now, everything gets a send, everything gets a return. Effects sub-returns are typically returned directly into the main mix, so there's not going to be a whole lot of adjustments. There's a little bit over here, but you're basically going to be, whatever it is what it is. It's mostly controlling how much you send, and then you balance it out. So we were talking about our effects units. If I send it down effects unit 1, it comes into our stack over here on the lexicon. That's sound effects like reverb and what have you. Another sound effect unit, that's effects 1, effects 2. Effects unit 2 is the one below it, and you would pick whatever you want, and it's a whole bunch of presets in here for small hall, reverbs, every kind of thing in the world. Whatever sounds good to you, you would just kind of select it up here, dial it up. That sound goes out, so you've captured a little bit of the sound, and then you've elected how much you want to send into the unit without blowing it up, and there'll be indicators on there also that if you start getting too much blinking, it'll tell you overload. And then that sound comes back, and then you can just kind of just do a little bit of a, if you need a little boost or where you want to send it. Normally it comes back in on the main, and we'd have a choice over here. You can send it to subs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or the left and right main. Typically, you're going to send it to the left and right main for the session, the way we're set up right now for recording. So you have effects 1 and effects 2. Effects 3 and 4 right now are not being used because we don't have but 2 effects units. Now, at the same time, as you come down, so you have a send, signal comes in, a little bit of it gets peeled off, goes this way. You adjust the amount you want, it goes over to here, and then it comes back to this button right here. From this button, like I told you, you decide where you want to send it. You can adjust the left and right, and then you decide it's either to the mains or to the subs, which is down here, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Alright, moving down. We are currently using subs 5 and 6 to send, or the return on the DAT recorder. So the DAT recorder comes back on 5 and 6. It's basically just to monitor it, doesn't really have an effect. Okay, moving down to the next section. You have mix B level. Mix B is a little bit more sophisticated. We're turning a 24-channel board into a 48-channel board. In the case of this, for recording, it's not used. It's typically used for live sound, and we're not going to use it for that. Next, you have a headset volume. This is for the headsets coming off the back here. You have headsets 1 and you have headsets 2. Headset 1 is for this room, and that's this headset. Headphones. That's your level. This is the headphones. This is the signal going to the headset amplifier on the mixer over here. Down on the bottom, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We had them a little bit labeled, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4 volume controls. So we have a studio. We have a level here, and then individual levels for each musician in the other room. Now, come back up here. We have 2 more volume controls here. You have a volume control for studio, which is the speakers in the studio, and you have control room speakers. So this is the volume for the speakers in the room we're at, and that's for the speakers in the other room. So if you have your headsets on, you could turn the speakers in the room off, and if there's a number of people after you recorded and you want to play it back without getting your ears all hot and sweaty, you can turn the volume back up. So that's your volume for your control room. That's this side. Studio is that side. This is the selector, what you want going into those speakers. So if you have a left and right mix, mix B, which is up, your 2-track recorder, an external device, or you can switch it to mono. In the case of a tape deck, if you were playing back a tape deck on the left here, you would play that down. If not, you leave it up. Solo. Every once in a while you stop and you have to listen to one track. And you would hit the solo button right here. Solo. Once I do that, you can see you don't want to do it too often. Once you do that, only thing being heard is that microphone. Everything else is shut out. And if you listen carefully through the speakers, as I talk on this, now that I put it on solo, when I turn it off, it goes back to the main mix, and you can see. Now, that volume is adjusted over here. Sometimes you want to turn it up pretty loud just to listen to the solo sound. It could be you're soloing an individual player, you want to hear the instrument a little bit better. It may be you want to listen to the effects return, whatever you want to solo. Everything on a return here has a solo button. Come back over here. Your effects unit has a solo. So if you're not really sure what it sounds like, what you're sending to your unit, you can put it on there and listen to it. So your effects send can be listened to, your effects return can be listened to. Solo, solo, solo. You can interrupt and listen to the music or the sound at any place. Okay, this is TalkBack, and TalkBack is built into this this mixer. There's a little microphone right here, and if you were to press down your TalkBack button, it'll basically play back anywhere you want it. Where's the TalkBack button here? Hello? As we move down the board, you have your signal indicators. Now, this is your left and right main, and these are your subs. These subs coincide with these down here. This is your main output and subs. You can direct any of the signals to any of these locations. So in a sense, you have there's 8 subs and 1 main. This is the left and right. They work in stereo. Now, I'm going to give you an example over here. We have channel 3 being to the recorder. It comes back over here. Now, if I send it to the main, and we look over here, as I turn the volume up, you hear it come through the speakers, and you see an indicator. I can also direct it to the subs. And over here, you'll notice sub 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8. So if I have it here and I press down this, you notice over here, I'm getting an indication. So test 1, 2, 3. I'm getting indications here. I get an indication on my recorder of my level. I get an indication on my return. I can hear it in the speaker, and I can see it at the sub and at the mains. Now you'll notice that if I get too loud, it's going to kill me. But at some level, this is a little bit too high, but if you can just see here, I pull it down into the, trying to hit zeros where I want to be ultimately. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. That's where I want to be. Right about there is a good level. It blinks into the yellow and never goes to the top. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. So I had a signal come in, goes to the recorder, comes back to 11, goes back to the main, but I've had it currently, I have it set on subs 1 and 2. If I put on 3 and 4, I can send it to 3 and 4 also. 5 and 6, 7 and 8. Oop. So if you look over there now, it's a blinking like crazy every time I talk. And you get all these little kind of combinations. You can do whatever you want. Okay, so we've seen where we have it. Then the next question is, how do we use it? And we're going to start another little chapter here. See here, this is to send to the aDat currently, and this is to 9 through 16, and this is to aDat send 70 to 24. We talked about our signal. We have it hardwired to come in on track to recorder and return. Now, one of the beauties is once you have the first recording and you have your little logbook that says Joe's recording on track 1 vocal and Pete's on track 2. Well, Joe doesn't like his track, but I've already committed my first 8 tracks. I have 24 tracks available on the recorder. Without having to reach in the back and constantly replug and do everything we want to do, I can take the signal from here and I can send it to the recorder on 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Any one of these channels I can send it to. The way I get there is if I'm coming in on channel 3, I would set down sub 1, and I would turn this to the left, and I would come down here, and you'll see 1, 2, 3. Where's it at here? Comes in here. If I set this to sub 1 and put the stereo mix to the left, that'll go down to this sub, which aligns in the back on the subs out, which are this big bundle of cables back here. There's sub 1s, there's 3 sets of sub outs, 3 rows, 1 through 8, 1 through 8, 1 through 8, and you can get to the same channels the same way. So 9, if it comes in here and I trade it to sub 1 to the left, that would equal channel 9 over here. All I have to do is activate it. So routing, you have subs, and those cables can go anywhere in the room, and it doesn't interfere with anything else you're doing. Those subs can go out. In the case of the subs are currently also hooked up down here to the aDat. Your channels 1 through 8 also correspond to subs 1 through 8 on the aDat recorder. That's the third set. So you can be recording here, here, and here at the same time off of the subs, because the subs can be routed to different places. And you could record multiple versions of the same track if you just record enable and you leave it, like put down subs 1 and 2, leave it in the center, it'll send a signal to channels 9 and 10, or as you do it in parallel, it'll be up here 17 and 18. I know this sounds confusing, but in practice, when you start doing it and you start putting down the second track of a singer, third track of a singer, fourth track of a singer, because singers are going to usually put down multiple versions of a vocal, you're going to have a place to put it. You have your gain, your faders, you have all these directional things, and then the big magic ones of the whole deal is right here. And this saves you the trouble of having to constantly plug and unplug in the back of your recorder, sending things over there. It could be, if for more traditional recording, you would possibly, instead of doing a direct out here with your 8 channels out, you would put all 8 of them directly in the bottom here. So all 24 channels could be accessible through the subs, but we're taking up some of them by keeping the aDat on the bottom. That's an 8-track recorder available. So that's why we're plugging the first 8 tracks, hardwire them into the direct outs up here. New song, yes. Sample rate, 48, yes. Come on, press new song. All right, new song. Tracks, 16, 24, 6, 2, 6, 8, 16, 24. I'm going to go to 16 for right now. You have to determine that when you start the recording the first time. Once you start an 8-track, you cannot go back and add another 8 tracks in the digital recording format. New song. And then we can go over and change the name by hitting name. We're going to go here, and it's old-fashioned, so you go over here and you got to go blank, blank. And for today, we're going to call it song A. So it's song 4. We set up for 16 tracks. Your input is analog, and you can change the input right here. Internal clock, sample rate, we got set. We changed it to 16 channels. If you didn't use them all, you'll transfer them over, but they'll be blank, and you delete them. And then at this point, you can go over here and say, we're done. You know, track enable, track enable. You pick the drive, with, you know, which drive you're working, this side or that side, and that's with the select button. And then you just pick track by track, wherever you want to place the recording. When you're ready to record, all you have to do is pick the track you're recording. Like we said before, we're going to record on track 3, which is this microphone. We're going to see we get a level, 1, 2, 3, 4. And at that point, you have track enabled. All you have to do is hit the record button and the play button. So you hit record, play, and I'm going test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I hit stop. I can rewind back to 0. Now if I hit play, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I hit. That's all there is. The computer, this recorder, is going to create space on the hard drive for whatever the length of the longest track is up here. So when you record and you have 3 minutes, it's creating space on the hard drive and allocating that space for 16 tracks of that many minutes. You'll always have that many minutes. When you run out of hard drive space, and it gives you the amount of hard drive space up here, this is 97% available. When you run out of hard drive space, you're down to 2% hard drive. You don't want to start another song with 24 tracks in it that's going to be 4 minutes long, because you're not going to make it. You know, and that's where we're set up. We're set up as an initial 8-track recording. Piano, bass, drum, singer, scratch track, whatever. And then if you set up for 16, you can always come back and listen to everything and put down another vocal track. And you don't like that, put down another vocal track. You don't like that, put down another vocal track. And then you change your mind. You call the piano player back and say, please re-record the piano track. I have 8 more tracks available to go back and do it over and 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 over. So if you had a band with a piano, bass, drum, I would probably give 2 tracks to the piano for stereo out, 2 tracks for the drummer for a stereo sound. So that's 2 for the bass, and then the drum, you know, the bass player, 1 track. You'd have maybe a trumpet, a trombone, and a sax, or a sax, a trumpet, trombone, sax. at 7, maybe a guitar or a vocal, and the vocal is always considered a scratch track to begin with. So the vocal is there to help the band hear what's going on and create a certain amount of emotion. Once you have the band recorded well, on a 16 tracks, now you come back, I have 7 or 8 more tracks. And if you don't like the trumpet solo, you can say cue up minute 2 and then redo a solo, or the trumpet comes in on minute 1.5. He's got 12 seconds of solo there, and he says, yeah, I could do better. You can cue it up just by running this play fast forward. You watch your time, you locate the time, and then you do what's called a punch-in. Basically, you just activate the channel you want, like right there. You hit the play, the guy hears where it's at. You're sending a signal back over there, and that's a new track, and it could be just a little bit there. It always works out. At the end of it, you can use one of the tracks like to redo all the solos. If there's a trumpet solo at 1 minute, and there's a saxophone solo at 2 minutes, he can redo his solo, and 30 seconds later, all of a sudden there's blank and there's no sound, and then the saxophone player comes in and redoes his section at 2 minutes on the clock for 30 seconds, and just work your way through it, all the little mistakes and that stuff. And then you have to go back when you mix it over in a computer. You go in there and you just create your volume up, down, and the other one volume down and up. Get rid of it over there on track 2, add it in on track 17.
Okay.
It's real simple.